Hi everybody, this is Lisa from Stop, Drop, and Knit, and today I have a super special episode for you all. Today, I am finally bringing you the interview that I did with Chick Colony, founder of Harrisville Designs in 1971. So I found myself on vacation in New Hampshire, staying about a 17-minute drive from Harrisville Designs back in June earlier this summer. And at the last minute, I was able to arrange this special interview with Chick Colony. And I am so grateful to everybody over at Harrisville Designs for helping to make this possible and for clearing a little bit of their schedules and for watching Owen and keeping him busy with some of the Friendly Loom products while we were filming the interview upstairs in their studio space. So everybody was just so amazing there. I was so fortunate to be able to talk with Chick Colony. He started the company, Harrisville Designs, in 1971 as a way to keep the historic textile industry alive in the Harrisville, New Hampshire area. It is one of the oldest surviving mills in its original state in the entire country, and we all have Chick to thank for over 50 years of beautiful 100% wool. It is just amazing hearing Chick talk about the history of the company and how he came to start Harrisville Designs, recognizing the value that it would bring to the town, not at all from a touristy point of view. He does not want it to be a tourist location. Something like Colonial Williamsburg is definitely not what he had in mind when starting Harrisville Designs. Rather, he wanted to keep the textile industry alive in the town and bring economic vitality into the Harrisville area. So he was able to create a whole series of jobs for a whole bunch of people, and it's just amazing what he has done, the tradition that he is now passing down onto his sons. I met Nick briefly, and Nick is very active within the Harrisville Designs community as well. So I hope that you all truly enjoyed this interview that I did, and it just, I am so excited to be able to share this with you. Really quick before we get to that though, I did want to do a quick what am I wearing section. So let's go into what am I wearing. Okay, so part of the reason why this interview was so delayed over the summer, I filmed it back in June. Originally, Caitlin Hunter was supposed to be releasing this design the end of the week that I filmed the interview. So I wore this sweater for the interview. And then Caitlin got super consumed with her family's move back to Alaska, and everything just got put on hold, including this interview, because I was not able to share my finished garment at the time. So now Caitlin has released this adorable tee. It's the Glacial Light tee, and it is a really cute lace work design, and it's amazing. So I have told you guys in my last episode, episode 35, all the details, including the yarn that I used for this test knit that I did. So I'm not going to take up any more space away from the interview with that. But I just wanted to, in case you guys were wondering what I'm wearing, it is Caitlin Hunter's latest design, Glacial Light tee. So anyway, on to the interview. I really hope you guys all enjoy it, and I will see you at the end with some acquisitions that I picked up when in Harrisville, because you guys know I was picking up some special things while I was there. Okay, bye. Today we are fortunate to be able to speak with Chick Colony, who is the founder of Harrisville Designs, and he is going to give us the rundown on the history of Harrisville Designs and his involvement with that. So.
Okay, great. Nice to have you here. Harrisville Designs came about in context of a preservation program to preserve what's considered to be the best preserved early rural textile village in the country. And the reason it is a National Historic Landmark, and the reason it is not that it was built, but that it survived. Because most of them are unrecognizable today. I grew up here, and my family has run a woolen mill here since 1850.
Oh, wow.
And my father chose to live here, so my original ancestors started the mill here in 1850, but then after the Civil War moved to Keene, and they ran the company from Keene. My father was the first one in the family that wanted to live back here, so I consider Harrisville home.
Is this what used to be Cheshire?
Cheshire Mills.
Cheshire
Right.
Mills.
The family company was Cheshire Mills. It was a fully integrated textile mill, and that means that they purchased wool and produced cloth, mostly for women's garment industry. That lasted until 1970, and in 1970 there was a big falling out in textiles in this country. 53 mills in New England closed that year, including this one.
In 1 year?
Yes, and this was a medium-sized mills were measured by how many looms they had. This one had 40 looms, so it was a medium-sized mill. After World War II, basically after the Civil War, the textile industry in New England started on a downhill slide, and it's continuing today, although there's hardly anything left today. When the World War II ended, there were 95,000 broadlooms running in this country. And in 1970, when this one closed, there were fewer than 3,000.
That's a huge...
So it's a huge decline of
Wow.
an industry. And it was a very fragmented industry. They didn't have a lot of lobbyists in Washington and people to scream and shout about what was happening, like, say, the automobile industry would. And so the mills just disappeared. And there's really hardly anyone left. But anyway, the question was, in 1970, the town had sort of survived in its obscurity. Nobody knew where it was. I went to high school in Keene, it's only 10 miles away. My friends didn't know where Harrisville was.
Oh, wow.
So people suspected that it was a well-preserved place because no one knew where or what it was. And they were afraid that if we tried to save it, we would ruin it. For instance, the state of New Hampshire survives on tourism, and they really want us to create a big tourist trap here. And none of us who lived here thought that was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So we came up with the idea of trying to reinvent the town in its historic context, but with modern industries and other uses. And then a company moving up from New Jersey purchased the mill because you got this little tiny village with a great big industrial building in the middle of it. What are you going to do with that thing? And luckily, our dreams came true when somebody said they're going to buy the building and put an industry in there, which they did. However, that meant textiles was over. And I was young and foolish, didn't really know what I was going to do. I thought I'd be in the family business, but the family business was gone.
Right.
So I said to my father, we really ought to try to keep textiles as part of what we're saving here somehow. And he said, yeah, but how are you going to do that? And I said, well, I don't know, maybe we could spin yarn on a small scale. Because I knew everybody said you couldn't do that, but I knew you couldn't make cloth on a small scale because it's hard to do it with the machinery, but you can spin yarn on a small scale. And actually, that's how the mills originally started. Farmers brought wool to these mills, like this one we're sitting in was built in 1832. Farmers brought in wool, they carded and spun it into yarn, they gave it back to the farmers, they took it home and they wove it at home. So that's what I decided to do and started Harrisville Designs just to do that. And we started out in the hand weaving business because there was a hand weaver in town. And I went and talked to her and I said, where do you get this yarn? She said, it comes from Sweden.
Oh.
And I said, there aren't any sheep in Sweden, but there are weavers in Sweden. So there was a demand for high quality yarn. And the wool all comes from Australia and New Zealand. Anyway, they produce 80% of the wool in the world. So I got the idea we'd make a yarn for hand weaving, and that's how we started. And over the years, what makes our yarn distinctive is we take white wool and dye the wool before we spin the yarn. So colors are made by combining dyed colors. Most yarn is made white and then dyed.
Right.
And that gives it a very flat color look. This gives it much more of a heather look. That's what we were trying to
And
do.
that's how you can combine colors as well, because you have.
That's right. Any color, any yarn of ours that has our green in it has got the same green in it. So
Okay.
teal goes with emerald and goes with
And you
hemlock.
can mix the fibers together.
Yeah, it's an expensive way to
spinning.
make yarn because there's a lot of waste in the process. And you don't want to add cost to your waste. So in our case, our waste is dyed. In a regular case, it's natural. So dyeing is almost as expensive as the wool itself. So you try to put off dyeing as long as you can. Like your t-shirt would have been made natural.
Right.
And then they would dye the t-shirt.
Right.
Because if the less waste you dye, the better. But you can't really dye garments very well. Some you can. T-shirt you can, a polo shirt you can. But my shirt, you can't do it because it's two different colors.
Right.
So in this case, this is made from dyed yarn and then woven two different colors. So anyway, that's how we started out. Over the years, a lot of knitters use our yarn because they like the colors. It wasn't really designed for them, but they bought it anyway. And it was a little bit firm, a little bit rough. And knitters, we found out, you don't knit a sweater and then wash it because it changes shape and size. A weaver can weave cloth on a loom and then wash the cloth and then cut the garment. So we, over the years, added a finer wool to our mix to give it a better hand, and then we wash some of the yarn after we spin it so it's ready for knitting. So we sell, it's odd to do that, but we sell a woolen yarn that's both for knitting and for weaving. And that's how we did it. And
That's wonderful.
2 years into it, I have 5 sisters, and this is in the early 70s. They were all saying, find us a loom. Everybody wants to weave. I thought, well, that should be easy. No, there weren't any looms around because everybody was weaving. And then I looked at a loom and I thought, well, there's not that much to it. Maybe we can make one. And then I just started working with a design for a loom, and I found out, no, they're expensive to make. Who knew? They don't look expensive, but I remembered from business school the razor blade thing. I figured if we can make an inexpensive loom, people will buy the yarn. But looms are expensive to make. And so to save the customer money, we decided to sell the looms as kits. Nobody really was doing that. That meant it was cheaper to ship. The customer put it together and knew exactly how it worked. So we were basically teaching people how their loom would work by having them build it. And other people making looms kept telling me, it's too complicated, it'll never work. But they don't know how to weave. And weaving is a lot more complicated than building a loom. So if you can weave, you can build a loom for sure. And so the kits were really successful from the beginning. And but I think we're still the only company that actually makes looms and makes yarn.
So are the looms, like these big looms over here, is that sold as a whole entire unit? Or is that also a kit that you then kind of...
We try to sell everything as kits.
Okay, so that would be broken down into
Yes, pieces.
and then you assemble it
That's right.
at home.
And we guarantee anybody can build one. And some pretty shaky people have done it over the years. It's really fun. And it's a great product for a kit because you're not intimidated. It's the tool you're going to be using for your craft. And you don't want to be intimidated by it. And that's really a good way to do it, I think. We do sell them assembled if people don't want to build one. But we try to encourage everybody to buy the kit if possible. So the business got started in 1971. The original mill here closed in 1970. And it's been going, for 50 years.
So your dad was skeptical.
No, he was very supportive, actually.
Right.
He thought I was crazy.
Okay.
And I'm sure I started the only woolen mill in the country in 1971.
Okay.
But there was an infrastructure of weaving still around. There were 10 mills within 10 miles of here. And so if we needed a spinner, we could go find one because it was a better place to work and we paid a little bit more. But now all those mills are gone too. And now it's much more difficult to find. People have to be trained to do this work, and it's not easy to do it. It takes sometimes a year to learn the job. So you have to be careful. You want employees to stay a long time. And we've been really fortunate that there are still a lot of people around here who have a tremendous work ethic, and that's been great, big help. Because you can't be any better than your help as a company.
And it's wonderful that you're able to preserve these these skills from these crafts.
Yeah, because you think about it, woolen yarn has been spun in this village every year since 1790, and for the last 50 years by us. I don't know if it makes any difference, but it matters to me. I think it's because textiles attracts a certain kind of person to come and work here, and you know, it's the way the town was set up. Yeah.
I'm the person. Yeah.
So anyway, that's basically, and well, I didn't really get too far into the history, but after 1985,
Right.
there was a certain change in the economy. I won't put any names to it, but and women went back to work to basically pay for that revolution, as they called it. So that was most of our customers were women, and it really hit the handcraft business hard. Think of clothing, think of fabric stores. Every town of any size had a fabric store because people could buy cloth and sew at home. Nobody does that anymore, and nobody has time to because they were all working so much. So the weaving industry sort of ground to a halt. We were trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do? You know, and I figured, well, the economy will come back. We're not a very big business. We don't need a lot of customers, but we need some. And of course, that didn't happen. And so several of our competitors went into the furniture business and other branches, but we wanted to stay with the weaving and knitting business. And so we developed a line of products for children because we were trying to see where's the interest that's not being met. And in 1985, if you were teaching an elementary classroom and you wanted to teach your children how to weave, we would say, buy a small loom like that. In fact, buy 12 of them and teach your children to weave on that loom. That's real weaving. But that you got to know how to run that loom, and it's expensive per child. So a lot of schools did it, tried it, and then, you know, if the teacher left, then the superintendent and the principal and maintenance guy were stuck with 12 looms they didn't know what to do with, and they were expensive. So we decided to develop a line of products that were very simple, that were intuitive, that children could figure out pretty much on their own, and that's where the friendly loom part came from. And that's about half our business now. And it's actually done very well during the pandemic because Amazon was open and schools were closed, and many parents were looking for decent things for their kids to do, other than look at a TV screen.
Yes, us included.
Yeah, and so, you know, we were fortunate enough for the pandemic to actually be a positive thing for our business, whereas, you know, many businesses
It's the opposite effect.
are opposite. And the bankers have told me that, you know, businesses either did really well or did very poorly. And
There was no middle
not
ground.
much in between. And we were lucky enough to be on the other side.
Great.
Which is great. So we're still making yarn every day, and we import it from Australia and New Zealand like everybody else. And that's basically how the business runs.
So do you do all of the dyeing in these facilities, or does it come to you? No, you dye all the colors here.
We don't dye it here.
You don't
we
dye it
send it
here.
out to be dyed, yeah. Dyeing is a tremendous pollution confusion thing. The dyes that are used for wool are the same dyes used for food coloring.
Yes.
So they're not toxic, but you don't want to put a lot of color in the wastewater, and you don't want to use you can't use heavy metals or anything. So it has to be done in places where they're really set up to that.
So then you ship the fiber out to be dyed, and then it comes to you back here, and then you spin
That's
it
right.
all in the mills.
Yeah, you spin it all here.
And then whatever waste there is from that process, is that the waste that's going into like the needle felting kits?
Some we can recycle a lot of the waste but if you're making red yarn and then yellow and then orange yarn, you get reddish orange in between. It's neither red nor orange, but you could dye it black.
That's true.
And sometimes we do that, and sometimes we can say, well, it's really not red, but it's dark enough where it could be. So you can recycle it. Also, every time you make a lot of yarn, and we make small lots because we don't sell huge amounts of any one color, you have waste left over that's perfect, and you can use it again, but not now. It's time's up. So you have about 35 pounds of waste every time you make a lot. But if you take that 35 pounds and throw it into the next one that's the right color, you can use it, and then you can end up with another bag of 35 pounds. So you have, it's like sourdough starter or something. You
Right.
get a little bit
Yeah.
of everything at all times.
So you can always dye it darker.
You
But
can
you
you
can't-
can
yeah,
over
you
dye.
can't
You
do
don't
that.
really like
Right.
to do that because wool's fragile, and you don't want to. If you cook, so-called, the dyers cook it too long dyeing it, it makes it brittle.
Yes, I have done some natural dyeing.
Right. You know
So,
what that's like.
Yeah.
But people always say, how come black yarn's weaker than all the other yarns? Well, it's not weaker. It's
It's
just been dyed so heavily, and also it could have a lot of waste in it. That's shorter, and that's why it feels less strong. Because the strength of yarn is the number of turns of twist and the length of the fiber.
Mhm.
And it's always a compromise as to how strong your yarn's going to be. People ask us, can we make the yarn stronger? Yeah, we can make it stronger by giving it more twist. But if you knit a sweater out of it, it might stand up in the corner.
Right.
And so you're having strength and drape are the two things you're worrying about. You want it to be soft enough, but strong enough to work with. Soft enough to wear, strong enough to
Mhm.
work.
It's strong enough to hold up.
Right.
But yeah. So how many people work for the mill?
The whole company employs about 40 people, and in the spinning mill about 8.
Okay, and it's still in the family. Your son.
Yes,
Is-
luckily for me, one of our sons is taking over the business. Actually, 2 of our 3 sons work in the business, but one of them is sort of heading it up, and he's
Is that Nick?
Nick, yeah,
Okay.
and he's really taken to it. He's been working here about 10 years now, and I should be careful what I say. We didn't raise our children in the business.
Okay.
They were raised across the street from the business, but they weren't really
Right.
doing what's doing. And when they got out of college, their perception was it looked like a lot of work and not much money.
Mhm.
And that was actually pretty accurate. But there are other benefits from doing it that you can, it's not just a matter of making money, it's doing something you think has meaning. And he's really taken to it, and now he understands it a lot better.
Mhm.
And he's really gotten good as a knitter. Jared Flood is one of our
Mhm.
customers. We make yarn for a few other,
Brooklyn Tweed.
Yes.
And yeah.
and Jared's encouraged Nick that he could be a knitter, and Nick picked up knitting pretty quickly, and he's a good knitter.
It's great.
Yeah, and he likes it. So he's pushed different parts of the business than I have. Where we're sitting is the studio. We've been running classes in weaving, dyeing, spinning, surface design, color, knitting, everything since 1972. And now we do it in this space. We didn't do it last year because of the pandemic. But this
It's
is
a
where we
huge space. It's
and we
beautiful.
usually have 12 to 15 students. This year we've cut back because of the COVID
Right.
thing. We're just kind of starting slowly again. And we have fewer classes this year.
Mhm.
But they're usually 3 or 5 day classes. So people come and work hard.
Oh, for a few days at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, like a workshop type
Yeah.
thing, not just like a 2-hour class.
Right. And we bring teachers in from all over the world to
Mhm.
teach here. We don't want to become so-and-so's weaving school.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a very good person who's taught our beginning weaving for years. And he's still teaching them, and he's really good at it. It's important that you start with the right kind of emphasis, because weaving's complicated. And if you spend the whole first week of your weaving career learning the names of the tools,
You lose interest.
you lose interest
You
pretty
just
quick.
have to be hands-on.
It's got to be fun,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of work, and there's a lot to it. And you have plenty of time to learn later.
Yeah. Well, they were showing our son the machine, the loom downstairs, and they were having him pass the shuttle through, and
Yeah.
he was just loving it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So-
And everybody likes weaving for different reasons. I mean, I like the rhythm of weaving. I like working with my hands and feet. If I'm weaving fast, that's all I care about.
Mhm.
I make mistakes, doesn't matter. I don't slow down.
So are you a weaver primarily?
I don't
If
consider
you-
myself a full-time weaver, but developing all the products, I did learn. I wanted to learn to weave so I could appreciate how they worked. So I did take a weaving class when I first started, and I've woven some, but not as much as I'd like to.
Do you knit at all?
I can knit.
can.
I don't consider myself a knitter. I had a really hard time with knitting. I can do a lot of things with my hands, but I found it difficult to balance the tension in the yarn and the tension in the needles. And one of our instructors said to me, my hands cramped up and stuff.
Mhm.
She said, use a round needle, and then you
The
can forget
circular,
about those.
yeah.
And I did, and that was easy. So, but I've never really understood the knitted fabric, and I'll show something I've knitted to somebody. They said, "Well, you've dropped a stitch way down here." And they'll go.
Yep.
I thought, I just don't understand it enough to be able to do
Nightmare.
it. It looks easy. And then I was in a knitting class one time. I was learning regular American style knitting, and the person next to me was doing continental, and I looked at it and said, "Whoa, that
That's
looks
what I
a
do.
lot better." to
Yeah,
me."
that's how I learned.
So that scrambled my mind too.
Yeah, the throwing method, I never learned that way, and it looks cumbersome.
Well, people get used to
Yeah,
it.
they
I
do. There's so many people that do it, and they get really fast at it. But I was taught continental, and
Yeah, lucky.
it's very efficient.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. It's true.
So your signature color lines, like nightshades, and you were talking earlier about how dyeing black is such a process. Was nightshades like a happy accident? What was the inspiration behind your signature color lines?
You'd have to talk to Nick about that. It's his idea from the start. And when he came to me and said, "I want to do 12 shades of black," I said, how about 3? Because 12 is a lot of yarn to make to get you started. And how can you use more shades of black? And he said, "Oh, I think it's going to," and he knows the knitting market better than I do. And it was very successful, and it's a great line.
Yeah.
And then he had daylights in mind behind it.
Right.
But it took us 3 years to catch up to where we could do daylights. But that's a lot of the newer things where he's experimenting with are breed specific.
Right.
So that's American Cornwall, and he wanted to use that kind of wool. So it's a little bit of a departure from the kind of yarns we usually make, but
I didn't know that about the nightshades and the daylights, that it was breed specific.
yeah, it's American Cornwall.
American Cornwall.
And we've done a couple of other specialty yarns too, called I forget what he calls it now. You should ask him. Anyway,
That's okay.
there's a lot of interest in that kind of thing. And one, he'll go out and buy a couple $1,000 pounds of a certain clip from a certain ranch,
Right.
and we make that into yarn, and then it's gone. Sheer, he calls that. And we have different versions of that. But Nightshades was designed specifically for knitting, although some people weave with it. But
It's a favorite.
it's a really nice yarn, and I thought he was
beautiful.
crazy when he did it, I gotta admit. But
And it's amazing. You get the right light shining on it, and the colors.
Yeah, it is
just
unbelievable.
pop out.
Well, I remember as a child, all the old timers told me you always put a little navy blue in with black. You don't want 100% black. And I said, why to do that? Well, they've always done that, they said. And that's kind of, I think when I told Nick that story, it may have been what triggered this thought, but just a
Is
tiny.
that why every once in a while you can't tell if it's a really dark navy blue or if it's black?
That's right. There's
You
a
know what
lot
I
of
mean?
blue and sometimes more blue. Well, I was in the Coast Guard and we all wore black clothes. And when we would line up in parade form and turn, and then you could see up the line, there are lots of different shades there.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be all one color, but
I
it's
didn't
subtle.
know that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is interesting. Color's tricky. We were lucky enough to have a color designer most of the years when we were starting. A
Oh.
woman named Nels Nemarowski, who taught at FIT in New York. She just recently passed away, but she designed it. See, when you're doing all heather colors, you have base colors.
Right.
In our case, 15 base colors. So somebody has to design that orange, and somebody has to design that yellow. And what we found when making heathers is if you take a color like this, which is got yellow and probably white in it, and maybe a little bit of green. If you make it a regular yellow, then it gets darker as you use it with other colors. So you have to start with really bright colors. And so many of our base colors, we don't actually even sell because they're too bright.
They're too bright.
I mean, if you take a beautiful forest green and a beautiful dark navy and you blend them hoping to get a beautiful teal, no, you get a terrible teal. The only way you can do it is have a very bright green, very bright navy. And
So
then you
did a
get
lot of these colors come through just experimenting?
Yeah, it's
combinations?
trial and error. You know,
That's
she would call me on the phone and say, okay, she would send me a list of what kind of pads she wanted. So much blue, so much navy, so much green, and you'd make it up, send it to her, and she'd say, no, we need more green. So bumped up the green, sort of like cooking. And then you finally arrive at what you want. But you got to get the green right and the navy right to start.
And so then she kept very detailed, like, measurements of
We did.
percentage.
We kept it
Your-
here.
your-
Yeah,
of
chemistry
percentages
of
Yeah.
of what, yeah.
But the green and the navy and the blue, she calls azure, the red, black, brown, gray. They're the same colors we've been making since 1973 or
So
4.
all of these colors here, you have 64
4.
colors together. These all are from the same 15 base colors.
That's right.
Just in different combinations.
Right. And we've added a few over the years. We have 2 reds now. We used to have just 1. And things change, but the wool hasn't changed. When I started, we wanted to make a very consistent product. So if you used it today and then came back to it 5 years from today, you still could get the same yarn. Because at that time, when there was a textile industry, there was lots of so-called mill ends around. And the mill ends were incredibly inexpensive because somebody else paid for them, part of making something. And to compete with that, so they were inexpensive, but thousands of pounds of blue. If you didn't want all blue, then you were in trouble. So we wanted to have yarns that would be predictable year in and year out. That meant we had to have a wool that we could buy year in and year out. And the wool we ended up with, the first wool we ended up with, and we still use, is a crossbred New Zealand wool that was used to make tennis balls for the same reason.
Wow.
It's very white, it's beautiful to dye, and it's very clean, and there's enough of it so you can always buy it. Price goes up and down, but you can always find it. It's what I call a big clip. Now we have a finer Australian wool mixed in with it, but that's basically what we're starting. Now nobody makes tennis balls in this country, so it's a bit of a problem. But.
So from the moment that you told your dad the idea to keep the mill or to start Harrisville Designs, how long did it take from that moment until you were starting to operate?
3 or 4, not long, 3 or 4 months. Because, first of all, the machinery was all still standing here, just shut off. So I started the first yarns basically on the machines as they were. Then going forward, as the building got sold, the machines had to be moved. Most of them were destroyed. Some of them I saved. I mean, it was a big mill. We're just tiny compared to that. I mean, we try to make 1,500 pounds in a week, and a big mill would make 100,000 pounds in a week. So it's very small. But I was able to start slow and with no money because my father said, how are you going to make it? And I said, I'm going to buy machines from you. So as you're getting rid of these machines, I'm going to buy some. He said, how are you going to buy them? You don't have any money. I said, I'm going to give you stock in the company. And he said, the stock is worthless. And I said, yeah, I know it's worthless, but the machines are worthless too. And he said, yeah, you're probably right. So I was able to start it basically by writing a few letters. So it was great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Start small, stay small.
And you've kept this preserved, like free of tourists.
Yeah, it's tourism. It's not there's anything wrong with it. It just changes this place.
Right.
I mean, you look at Williamsburg and Sturbridge Village, places like that. They have a role to play, but they're not real places. And for the people who live here, tourism would be very disruptive. The town is tiny, as you can see, and one busload of people changes the place. A lot of busloads of people would really change it. Now we get our share of tourists in this fall, leaf peepers. Every town around here does, but we don't get any more than our share. And we try actively not to encourage tourism because you have to really work at it to make it be successful. But that's really not why we're here. And we feel an obligation to preserve the place, but not necessarily to promote it. So that's the difference.
Well, I think that's wonderful. I can't imagine this as a touristy destination. It would be.
Yeah, it's too
It would
tiny.
be very different.
Well, we get people like yourself come here because you know our yarn.
Right.
But we don't consider that tourism. We don't think our students are as tourists. They're here for a specific reason. And it's a little different than big number tourism.
Yeah, like I was really enthusiastic once I realized how close we were to Harrisville. I said, oh, we gotta go over there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been viable. You know, every once in a while, someone want to make a movie here or something like that.
Oh, really?
And it's a little tricky. Because, you know, one movie you could survive it, but that's a big industry. And
Big crews and yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got a call one time from Disney Productions, and they were a location person in Boston, said they want to make a picture of a rural textile village from 1840. And I said, what are we really talking about here? And she said, we're making a movie called, I can't remember the name of it now. I'll think of it in a minute, but it was about the toxic waste at an industrial site. And she said, well, we're really talking about John Travolta for 3 weeks. And I said, okay. And I'm thinking, and 150 other people who, when this is over, will remember this place. And, you know, you can make one movie every few years and survive, but 5 movies a year, it's a different place. So I said to her, well, I could help you find a place. So I did find another place.
Wow.
But I spent 3 years living in New Orleans in the French Quarter because I was in the service then, and I would walk to work. And I'd walk right through movie sets every day. They're pretty disruptive.
Yeah.
Very disruptive. Yeah.
And so I decided
It's not.
not what we want to do here.
Right.
So
you don't do tours of the mill?
no, well, you know, once a year or so we open it up so people can see it, but
Okay.
not normally.
But that, yeah, it would be pretty disruptive to
Yeah.
the production.
It's also the insurance company goes bananas when they think.
Right.
So, yeah, I imagine. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
So, Michelle mentioned in the email that you guys are like trying to get everything within one building now?
Yeah, we're moving the spinning mill from where it is now back to the building that was originally in. This big building you see out the window is 80,000 square feet, and that's where the industrial building was, and all the industrial machinery. And we're moving it back up into this area. Because the company that bought the mill in 1971, we leased space from them for a while, but in 1977 they threw us out. They said, we need the space. It was their building. So, you know, that was a moment of truth for the business. Do we move out of town? Do we quit? Do we build a building? I mean, this building was a woolen mill, but it's too small for the modern machinery.
Right.
It would shake it down probably. So, you know, moving out of town was crazy because the whole idea of the business is to spin here.
To be right.
Quitting didn't seem very exciting. I didn't know what else I'd do. And building a building was terrifying because they didn't have any money still. But we were able to build an inexpensive building, which is now going to become our warehouse actually going forward. But that's what we did.
Is that going to facilitate the production?
Nick's interest is in making the yarn with renewable energy. And that building has water power. And now we're going to have solar on top of the roof. So it's going to be entirely renewable energy.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think he feels good about it, and it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And all the employees will be in one place, which is good.
Which is really good too.
Yeah.
Well, can you think of anything?
Well, so looking forward into the future then. So where do you see Harrisville headed 5, 10, 20 years down the road?
We really don't want it to change much. That's
Right.
the whole idea of preservation.
Right.
Trouble with preservation is you improve a place and then people appreciate it
Appreciate
more.
it, right?
And then everybody comes in and wants to buy a place here and displace the people who live here and are supposed to be
Right.
here. So it's really hard to hold it under control. We have the foundation that sort of steers everything. It's
Right.
called Historic Harrisville, separate from Harrisville Designs. It's a public foundation, but we're very closely related because the idea of Harrisville Designs came from the preservation.
Right.
They have an affordable housing program of about, right now, I think 12 or 13 units. And we're trying to keep enough affordable residential space here so people can stay here and work here.
Right.
That's the whole idea, not be displaced. And that's working out pretty well. But, you know, I came across a whole series of photographs of Harrisville from 1968. And it's our 50th anniversary, so I sent a photographer out and retook the photographs now, 50 years later.
Wow.
And I was going to put up a big show comparing the two. but they look almost exactly the same.
It's just a better technology with the camera.
The windows look different, and the paint is better, but they're remarkably the same, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
bad thing
snapshot
for my
in time.
display,
Yeah.
but it's a good thing. So I would think that would happen. And it's not the business is complicated because it's not a business that I could sell to you, for instance,
Right.
and you take it away.
Right.
It's not for sale, and I can't close it down because it's part of it. So I hope the business could sustain itself long enough to do it.
Well, somebody could maybe take over it in the same location one day, like if
Right,
Nick
they
didn't-
could.
I don't.
But that was really fortunate for us that Nick was interested in doing it because I didn't really have a plan B.
So
And-
somebody would really have to apprentice with him
Right.
to really understand the lifelong.
Yeah, because there's a lot to it. It's not just a regular business you can analyze and say. I mean, the bank's always saying that you don't fit in any of the cubby holes we've got.
Right. It's an interesting question because inevitably there will come that time where Nick isn't able to continue.
Right, he's going to have to figure out his plan. I think,
Right.
too.
Right. Are you finding? There's been a change in the last decade of sort of the younger generation with sort of farm to table and going back to smaller businesses. And
Right.
are you finding that within the knitting community or your customer base that comes here? Are you finding that it's actually a different? That there's even more enthusiasm to get into crafting because there was obviously everybody had a loom and then people weren't, and now it seems there is a resurgence of
Yeah.
being more hands-on.
Yeah, I think that there's
In
pretty
creating.
specific interest. I mean, we have a much more educated customer now. They
Right.
know more about what they're buying and why they're buying it. And they're interested in small, they're also interested in made in America, which is good for us.
Mhm.
So they come looking for more specific things. And that's why I think the renewable energy aspect of it won't change the yarn. It's still the same yarn, but it's a different feeling.
More conscious
It's the
of
story behind the yarn
Right.
that's important. And I think that's changed in the last 10 years more than anything. And small, people appreciate small.
Right,
Which
yeah.
is good.
There's definitely a more eco-conscious
right.
way
Yeah.
of producing the yarn.
Yeah, and the internet gives us the chance to sell to the whole world.
To the whole
Before we always had to sell it to somebody else who then sold it. We still do that, but we can also sell direct to anyone, anywhere.
Right.
Right, your online store is easily accessible and
Right.
easy
And I
to
have nothing to
navigate.
do with that
Yeah.
at all. That's not, I've
Yeah,
never,
not your specialty.
I actually I bought these shoes online. And I'm not gonna buy anything else because they're not the shoes I wanted. But
Yeah, sure. I don't buy clothes
It's
online. A
hard
T-shirt maybe.
without- it's much easier to purchase something like yarn online if you have previously
That's right.
felt it.
It seemed like the
touched
perfect
and
way to
seen it.
resupply somebody, but to sell
Right.
design online is tricky.
Yeah. Well, but there's also, there's the knitter and weaver who is aware of your reputation.
Yeah.
And like me, I'm always like, oh, that's always something I've wanted to try, like your piece fleece.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about the piece fleece.
Yeah, Peace Fleece was a company in Maine, a husband and wife team. They had a farm, and the wife was a potter, and the husband was a farmer and spoke Russian. And during the Cold War, they were really worried about the future of the world, and they came up with an idea of connecting with Russian farmers and combining wool from Russia with wool from Maine, and making a yarn they called Peace Fleece. Nobody had ever imported any wool from Russia. Russia never exported any wool. So Pete went over there and actually negotiated this whole thing, and had a very difficult time finding an avenue to get the wool here. He ended up coming through England. And then when he got it here, he had a really hard time finding anybody who would spin it for him. They didn't like the idea. I thought it sounded like a great idea myself, so I said sure. I didn't realize I was the 10th or 12th person he asked, but that's where it came from. So they started out making that yarn, and we were just subcontractors for them. We made the yarn and then shipped it to them. Then when they decided to retire, their children weren't interested in pursuing that business, and they asked me if they sold the business, would we continue making the yarn? Because it's hard to find people now who can make yarn. Would we continue? And I said, well, I can't tell you for sure. I don't know who you're going to sell it to, but I would think we could. And so they did, and they sent people to talk to me. And I didn't think any of it could sustain itself. I didn't think there was. So Nick said to me one day, why don't we buy it ourselves? We make the yarn for them. Why don't we buy the business and incorporate it as, not integrate it as part of our business, but run it as a sort of a separate line, but with its own identity.
Right.
And that's what we've done. Between the it all gets back to politics. Putin has changed Russia a lot.
Right.
And Pete made very good friends in Russia, went to their weddings of their children and stuff like that. Now, as time went on, those people wouldn't even talk to him, couldn't do business with him. It was a heartbreak for Pete. But he got very interested in the Navajo reservation, and he's kind of shifted the business to being Navajo and interested, and that's basically what it is now. So we buy wool from the Navajo reservation. Pete started that, and they were getting very little money for their wool, but it was sustainable farming, and they have a terrible time on the reservation. They've had almost a 10-year drought now, and it's really hurt the farming. But we still make the yarn. We pay them a premium for the wool. We pay them. We pay so much a pound goes to the growers, and we still do that.
Oh, that's great. So you've got.
And it's a nice yarn.
Yeah, it is. So that, like, I was interested in, like, I've always heard about Peace Fleece, and I've read, a little bit about what you told me about the company, and I was really excited to come here and like feel it and.
Yeah, it's a.
In person.
It's a nice yarn, different from ours, but it's nice, and I love the idea of it.
Yeah, it's got such a story behind it.
Right. In fact, that story got Pete and me on the Today Show one time.
Did it really?
It's the only time I've ever been on the Today Show. It was fun.
Wow, well, thank you so much.
That's all right.
I don't know if I have in the immediate any other.
Okay,
Any
that's
other
why you can call me if
questions,
you have
but
questions.
yeah. So I really appreciate you
That's okay.
speaking with us. Thank you so much.
That's great.
Wave at the camera. Or you don't have to.
Don't close the door on me.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. So your name is?
My name's Brenna. I work here at Harrisville Designs.
Okay, so Brenda's going to just show us around the store, so tell us everything that we're looking at here. Okay.
She is a podcast knitter.
I'm not, she is. All right, so here we've got our flywheel, watershed, and turbine. These are Harrisville Designs lines. Nice colors. Here we have our D-lights. So these are really nice because they have very subtle color. You kind of have to look at them in the sunlight to actually see the subtlety
Yes,
of it.
I love the daylights. I also love how everything, even within the daylights, it's all like in rainbow.
Exactly.
Rainbow order.
We've got all these samples knit with the daylights as well. So here we have Brooklyn Tweed. So the Brooklyn Tweed, we spin and not dye. So we spin these for them. They send it to us. Let me know if you have any questions too.
He's got a question. He doesn't really.
How do you make all these yarn?
Well, that's not a question for her. We're going to learn some of that later. So this is more Brooklyn Tweed over here,
This
right?
is more Brooklyn Tweed.
So the Brooklyn Tweed loft and the Brooklyn Tweed shelter.
And the dapple.
What
we
are
have
these?
different ways.
So this is another company, Brooklyn Tweed, and they spin it here in the mill.
So they dye it, then they send it to us, then we do all the spinning
the floof.
for them.
They
Yep.
dye it as the floof, right? And then they spin it all up.
So this is just more of the daylight, so we can have some overstock. But this is Highland, so this is probably one of our most famous.
And
So
this is Harrisville Yarn,
yes,
right?
this is Harrisville Yarn. So these guys, the Highland and the Shetland, We have 64 different colors, different shades. Yep, so this is just a nice natural wool.
This would make the home edit girls so happy. Do you know the home edit?
No.
They're like an organizational company. They go into people's homes and they organize everything in rainbow order.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they would, like, their hearts would be going crazy
Can I
at
get
this
that
store.
at my
Yeah.
house?
Don't step on me.
And this is the Peace Fleece. So we don't, I believe that we just spin this as well. So this is Navajo, but it also has some Russian history as well.
Right, and so you recently acquired. How long have you been selling, or not super recently,
That
but
is a good question. Anne Marie, the Peace Fleece, how long have we been spinning for them? Forever. Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
So yeah, I guess we've been doing it for a long time. But,
Yeah, the Peace Fleece is really interesting to me.
this stuff is really nice too, and it is unwashed, so that's like slightly unusual. So you want to knit it, then wash it, or do a gauge and then wash it, just because it is unwashed. And it'll bloom really nicely. So here we have more of the Peace Fleece, just in a DK weight, and then we have our Shetland and Highland cones.
Oh, nice.
So this is for all of our weaving.
The weaving. Yep.
These are unwashed as well, whereas I believe that our skeins are washed. And then the Peace Fleece cones as well.
Get this beautiful
Nice little
loom.
corner. Yep, so we have these here set up so that people, if they want to test them out, they can. So if you wanted to try out the 22-inch 4-harness loom, we could always show them.
He's excited.
Do you want to try it? So you have to sit down here. I'm not very good at this. This is not my forte. This is more Kate. But so you control it with these. These are called Treadles, and they lift up the different harnesses. So what's nice about our looms is that previously looms were made to be direct. So it would be one treadle controls one harness, but now they're made so that you can program them so that one treadle will lift two, so it gives you a lot more options.
Okay.
So the way you do this, you're probably going to want to try it on this one,
Yeah.
just because it's a little smaller.
So she's gonna have you sit over the
Yeah,
other
so
one,
if you want
okay?
to sit, I don't know if we'll be able to sit together, but I can help you out. Do you want to sit here? So you take this is called the shuttle, and I'll press the treadle for you, see if I can reach that. So I push that and it lifts that up, so then you're going to take this
Slide
and
that
send that through.
You're gonna
And
grab your
grab
right
it on the
hand.
other side.
You're gonna pull that through.
And so you pull it so that the yarn just starts to mound. And then you drop it and hold on to this thing, and then you pull it and it goes whoop, whoop. It just pushes it down for you.
And now you gotta go back the other way,
So
though, right?
now we gotta press this treadle. Do you want to put your foot down on that? This one over here.
One to the
over.
left. Yep.
Yep. So just push down on that
With your foot.
with your foot.
Hold on.
I know it's a lot to think about.
Push it with your
He
toe.
doesn't drive
gotcha.
yet, so.
All right, so now you want to send that shuttle right back
To your
through.
left hand now.
So you send it back over, grab it, and then you pull it down to there, I think. And then pull this guy one more time.
Should get over there.
And there you go.
Okay, right, step over here.
This is good.
Pretty good. There you go.
Good job, bud.
Do it one more time.
So now you're weaving.
Yeah.
Pull that through a little bit more. Watch your shuttle. All right. So one more time. Push that so you can send that through. Good job. You're almost out of yarn. And
Right, so now you're gonna pull that.
Look at
you're
you.
doing a basic weave.
That's awesome, Ellen.
There's only one more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's probably
That's
it
probably
for
it. That's
now.
probably it for now. Good job.
Nice job, bud.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good
So that's
night.
something I want to get eventually.
Yeah. That would be amazing.
Thank you.
The 6-year-old or the or the.
Not yet.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I bet. So this is more of the Harrisville Designs. So this is silk and wool. I want to say that this is an older line, but I'm not super familiar with the silk and wool, so it's a 50-50 mix of wool and silk, obviously.
Okay.
And here are just some more samples of it. So this here is a big loom.
Whoa.
So this was designed in collaboration with Peter Collingwood, who is a very famous weaver who I believe has since passed away. But
Wow. Can you read what that says, Owen? Harrisville rug loom. Yeah. So this is a big one to make something like that.
so that's a
Look at that.
That's a very
The rug on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
cool.
this was made on that big. Isn't that cool?
And you wanna go here
Yeah, let's
first?
go.
So here's Shetland. So these are the same color lines as the Highland, but this is a fingering weight versus Highland, which is a worsted weight. So once again, we have 64 colors of these. And this is just the 100% wool. So beautiful. And this is another one that is sent to us already dyed by a
Oh,
company
Clyde from
called
Neighborhood
Clyde.
Fiber Co.
Exactly. Yep.
Mhm.
So is it Ann Weaver
Mm-hmm.
and Carita?
Carita.
Yeah, I can't remember her last name. But
I don't remember her last name either.
so they send it to us with the two colors that they want applied together, and we apply that down in our mill building.
Oh, nice. So they send it singles or?
Yes, they send
And
them
so then
single
you
and they're
just do the
wrapped
plying.
together, and we just do the plying
Wow.
for them. Yep, applying.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Owen has found his happy place.
Yeah.
Owen
The
loves
button
buttons.
collection.
We have a fun collection of buttons. All right, so now take it over to nightshades.
Make sure you get the nightshades. Yes.
So they've put this here in like the perfect place. You get all of the subtle shades of the
Yes.
nightshades. So this is the sister line to Daylights.
And nightshades came first, right?
Yes, yep, correct.
Yeah, you can see the colors. Really
Yeah, I love
well.
the colors. It's
I know.
Look how small these are.
Yep, I love stiletto and
Hey, look how small these are.
I have Talk Radio, which is the one down
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I've got a sweater quantity of that waiting to be turned. That one.
Yeah,
Just haven't done it yet.
Shades.
But yeah, stiletto.
And
is another
again!
one.
Yeah, I think that Anne Marie loves the stiletto.
Yeah, the stiletto is.
All right, so now behind you.
Okay, up this way.
This, I believe, is our newest line. Oh, here we
Hold
go.
on. All right.
oh,
So
there's some more Dream Cycle.
Here's our spin cycle.
Quintessential. Yeah, I'm saving up for some spin cycle. So I don't think that we spin that for them. I think
They just send it here because it pairs really well with all of your yarn.
yeah, exactly. It goes really well with the nightshades.
You have super quiet feet.
So this is the sheer. So this is, I believe, it is, I can't remember the name. I just have to remind myself. Yep, so these come from CVM, which is California Variegated Mutant, and Romdale sheep.
Okay.
Romdale, I just learned, I think it's a combination Romney and Rambouillet. They're actually endangered currently, I believe, but we source that from Idaho and Oregon. And what's really nice about the sheer is that these are undyed. So the three colors that we have, which is this white, warm silver, and fawn brown, these are just the color of the
the
natural
sheep.
fibers. Yep,
Mhm.
exactly. And they're super soft. I would say this is probably our softest line.
It is very soft.
And it's nice because it comes with, I believe, 320 yards per skein.
Oh, that's
So it's
generous.
bigger,
for a
yeah.
yeah. Is it a DK or worsted?
I believe that it's a DK.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Check, but I think that's DK. All right, and then
And then
friendly loom stuff.
we've got all the friendly looms.
Yeah.
Also, the rainbow. Love rainbow.
Yep. So these probably our most popular product, especially during the pandemic.
Oh, really?
We were shipping out so many pot holder loops and
Wow.
looms and
love
everything.
that.
You want to do that? Well, we
So
can
they're
talk
super
about it,
fun.
yeah.
We've got two sizes. We've got the traditional and the pro loom. So we've got different size loops for each of those. Yeah, some people get them in massive quantities. I don't have the patience for it, but I respect those who do. And here we just have lots of fun kits for kids.
Oh yeah, so
too.
here there's an easy weaver. Oh, and look up at the top. See, look. This would be to bulky for me to get down.
But
I'll lift you for a
No,
second.
no, no. Daddy, here. You hold
No,
it.
Daddy's got the camera. All right, step back here and you can see it. Okay, you see all the way at the top? That's a little loom for like you.
I think it's like
Yeah, so that's like a tabletop loom.
I'm not super.
And then there's another small one down here,
The
right?
lap loom, and then yep. So these are like tapestry looms.
Okay.
So you would just make cool little.
Oh, and that you can do like weaving with like
Mommy.
hand spun yarns.
Oh yeah,
and
so that's what. Yep. You can use felt, raw felt, and just make really pretty little.
that's what I would need to do some of my art yarns that I
Ooh,
spin
Mom.
Yeah.
and turn into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
Yes.
Okay. I've got a bigger version too. You can see some.
Oh,
of these
wow.
styles.
I was looking at that.
Isn't
You
that
were looking at
cool?
that.
Oh, needlepoint. That is another thing that I have not yet tried.
Mm-hmm.
But yep, so we've got these, and we also sell all of our own fleece and then local fleece. This is the piece fleece. But then down here we have a local woman, just one town over. She has her own dyed roving, which I've done a little bit of hand spinning with that. But yeah, I would say that the fleece is mostly good for needle felting, not so much spinning. It's
Okay.
a little bit short.
I do a lot of spinning, so like would these be
So-
better for needle felting or okay for
The
spinning?
piece fleece is a little bit better for spinning, I think, than our own fleece. But I think for the most part, this is used for needle felting. And Susan Weaver's roving is
Would
good
be
for
good for
spinning.
spinning too.
Yeah, I spun some of this myself recently. So this is a little bit nicer. It's not as short.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much
Great.
it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Wasn't that just a spectacular interview? I was so excited to be able to share it with you. I did want to quickly say, if the video wobbled a little bit here and there, this was not a planned interview, so we did not have equipment with us like our tripods. So my husband was kind enough to like hold the camera as still as he possibly could while we did this interview. So there might have been a little bit of wiggling going on, but hopefully nothing to make anybody too seasick or anything. Okay, so I got a big bag of stuff to show you guys. Yeah, let's start actually though first with this little Needlepoint Sampler Kit. This is what Owen was working on while we were upstairs filming the interview. So the staff, the girls in the retail shop were just so amazing, keeping him busy. I don't know, there's no way we could have filmed that interview if they hadn't done that. So thank you. You guys know who you are, and I'm just, oh my gosh, thank you so much for keeping him busy. Yeah, so Owen was very interested. He was looking through the shop and he was very interested in working on the sheep sampler kit. So he didn't get too far, but this is meant for kids. So they have a whole series of Friendly Loom products, and this is their Needlepoint Kit. And so Owen has been very, very interested in doing some needlepoint. We have not worked on this actually at all since then. I'm gonna try to show you the little bit that he did get done. It's for ages 8 and up, and Owen is 6, so you know, he had a very short attention span with it. He would, I guess, it was reported to us that he would do a few stitches and then he'd go kind of play on his iPad for a little bit, and then he would come back over and do a few more stitches. So let me see. The kit comes with some pretty like detailed instructions, as well as all of the beautiful yarn. So this is, you know, obviously all Harrisville Designs yarn, and something else in there. But so I guess they did the outside border in the yellow, and then he has started one row of green. We're not very far. I really have to get him back into this. But I think as he gets a little bit older, he will be more invested in completing it, because every once in a while he's like, I really want to do cross stitch. I really want to do cross stitch. But I haven't been able to find anything really, really simple like this. So it's a little complicated, because like a beginning cross stitch kit would come with like the picture printed on the plastic, and this does not. So he actually has to reference a picture. So it's a little bit complex for him, but I think it's going to be something that he can grow into, and that we will have a lot of fun doing together. So yeah, you guys should check out, if you're not familiar with the Friendly Loom products, go check out their website. They have everything. Their pot holder kits are super popular. They have a much larger pot holder frame than what you can find in like your typical craft store. And yeah, they have needle felting kits, pot holder. They've got some weave, like one of those like floor weaving type kits in like a mini form. They have everything, and it is so cool. But okay, I am so excited to share with you the yarn. So the first thing I'll show you, I was so excited to get to finally pick up and try some piece fleece. So I'm pretty sure that Chick went into a little bit of the story behind piece fleece. But if you're not aware of the story, it is on their website, and it's an amazing bridge between like Russian sheep, bringing them to the United States. So I was able to pick up, I got these two beautiful colors. So there's this gorgeous teal color. It's so pretty, with like some little specks of green and blue. And then I got this much brighter greenish yellow, similar to this one. You can see I'm getting really into this kind of chartreuse color. And it's got some flecks from like all different colors of the rainbow in there. So I thought that this would make like a really nice hat or mittens or something like that. So yeah, I'm really excited to finally get to try some piece fleece. So that was the piece fleece I picked up. All right, you guys have seen this one before, because I have shown you this in relation to my latest hand spun that I completed, because I have plans to combine this fingering weight yarn with my most recent hand spun that has a lot of greens and purples in it. So I was really pleasantly surprised to see that if you go to the retail store at Harrisville Designs, they have a whole section of mill ends that you can shop from, that you're not able to shop for those online. So it's always, their selection is always different. It is just basically like the leftovers from their spinning process, reusing them and creating what they call mill ends. So you can pick up these yarns at an amazing discount. I want to say that it's similar in feel to, this one particular is similar in feel to their Daylights line, but it's not at all like the same colors or anything that they use. So it is a different yarn than their Daylights, but it's kind of the same concept. So I hope that you guys can see there's like a little bit of like a light pale minty seafoam kind of green in this one. So I picked up 2 skeins of fingering weight, and these don't have labels or anything. I don't remember the yardage, so I'm not really sure how much yardage I'm working with here. I want to say they had it listed on a sign, and I want to say it was a pretty generous amount, but I just don't know. So I'm gonna have to maybe inquire about that as I plan my project with my hand spun. So I got 2 of these, and these are fingering weight. Absolutely gorgeous. And then I picked up this one, which is more of a DK weight. And this one, if you guys can see, has a little bit of a light purple in it. And I can either use this with that same hand spun, Or I have another hand spun that I did that has a lot of purple and like a deeper, darker blue in it that I think might work really well with this as well. So this will probably become a hat, maybe some mittens, I'm not really sure. But I envision that this is going to be combined with some of my hand spun. And then, let me see. Oh, I got another, oh, maybe I picked up this, okay. I had different plans for this. I picked up, maybe I was gonna use these two together, actually. So this was another, I forgot about this one. So this was another mill end, kind of similar to their nightshades, I guess. But you know, it's not at all, like, it's not at all nightshades. There is not one of their specific colors in here. So, but I thought that I would use these two together in some kind of hat or mittens or something. So that was my plan. And then I saw my hand spun, and then I was thinking, well, maybe I'll use my hand spun with this. But now I remember that I had planned to use these together. So I got these two things. And finally, I think I picked up a sweater quantity of this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I picked up 7 skeins of these mill ends. And this is like a grayish pink. It's so pretty. So I don't really know what sweater this is going to become just yet, but I definitely picked up a sweater quantity of this one. So I'll just hold one of them up. You can see there's a lot of little specks in here, but overall it has like a grayish, pinkish, reddish kind of feel. So that was my big bag of acquisitions from Harrisville. Oh my goodness, I have so many wonderful yarns. Look at this all. So I have so much yarn. I am so excited. I've never worked with any of these yarns before, and I just envision a whole bunch of woolly amazingness out of this. So, it's like a big hug of all my yarn. Okay, that is everything that I have to share with you guys for this interview and acquisitions today. Thank you all so much. Harrisville, thank you so much for having me and my family and for accommodating an interview on such short notice. You guys, you girls and guys were all the best, and I am so appreciative. So thank you so much. I'm so glad that this interview is now finally out in the world. And with that, I hope that you guys all have an amazing day, an amazing weekend, an amazing week, an amazing everything. And please, if you ever find yourselves in the Harrisville, New Hampshire area, definitely be sure to pay Harrisville Designs a visit. You will not regret it at all. So, thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!